Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
It's not easy to start, but it's not impossible. And when you love this that you do every day, it's less impossible. It would be worse to work in an office. I always think that a person that wants to learn and is a nice person, like ethically, it's easy to work with that person. I am very picky about clients also. Definitely for me, there are red flags of clients that I just don't want to work with. Your Foley work, you have to act. You're recreating what someone else did, and you have to give it a sonic intention. The day that I don't feel like very proud of what I tried to achieve in a work or with a client or with a project, I'm just gonna, get out of the business, because that's what motivates me to work.
In this episode of Pro Audio Secrets, I'm talking with owner and CEO of Amniotica Sound Studios in Bogotá, Alejandro Jaramillo. He is an entrepreneur since over 20 years, working in audio, running a team now, working on big shows out of Bogotá, Colombia. And we connected over Instagram and had a wonderful discussion about the audio industry, how we see things, how we run things. I asked a lot of how he operates as a CEO and as someone who has employees. It's a very interesting discussion, and the passion for sound is something that distills over this discussion. So if you're passionate about sound and you want to elevate in your career, this episode is for you. So yeah, Alejandro, welcome. I'm so happy that you made the time to talk with me about audio, about our passion. Do you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're doing, and what you're especially passionate about when it comes to sound?
Bastian, hi. Thank you for inviting me and having me. I've been a big fan of your work. I always follow your tips, and you share great knowledge. So I'm Alejandro Jaramillo. I basically live in Bogotá, Colombia, actually close to Bogotá, Colombia. I live in a countryside. It's like a 40-minute drive. I'm a sound engineer, and I've been working on sound for more than 25 years, 24 years. I started my company in 2004. And since then, we've been working. So I'm a sound engineer. We basically have a team which is called Amniotica Studio, and we've been working on films and series and operas here in Colombia for the last 22 years. And yeah, that's kind of my background. I studied sound engineering in university. I did a bachelor's degree in sound engineering, which kind of complemented everything that I wanted to learn. I came from a musical background, and I studied sound because I also loved technology. So I after two bachelors, like failure bachelors that I started, I decided I was gonna, study sound engineering, and I've been studying sound engineering since then.
Amazing. So how old are you? You look so young, and 24 years having the audio career and your company for 22 years already. It seems almost impossible looking at you.
Yeah, I'm 43.
Right.
I'm actually going to be 44 this year. I started really young. I started recording records when I was really small. My first record, when I obviously in a very, simple way, I recorded an album when I was like 14 or 15 years old. That was like my first musical album with, this band that I had with friends back in the days. And we didn't have a lot of resources, so we had to do the album with what we had. And there happened to be a studio in the city where I was living in at the moment, because I grew up in the United States, but I moved to Colombia when I was like 13 years old. So when I came back, I got really into music, and we started recording with whatever we had. We had like two microphones and, probably a Porta Studio, like or 4-track or something. And when digital came in, we kind of, bought a computer. It was a really cheap computer with an interface, and we managed to record the album that way. We sequenced everything, like samplers and synths and stuff, and we recorded guitars and vocals. So I really, got into it, and I started loving it. So I started to, how to learn to record myself. And then I went to study sound engineering. And when I was in the middle of my career, or probably like at the beginning of my career, because I started in 2002 to study my degree. And in 2004, while I was still studying, I had the opportunity to do like an internship in a studio here in Bogota. They basically did like music and sound for advertising, and they also had this studio with a 5.1 system, which I started like going to sessions with the engineers that were there, and I started like to love it. So I decided like to do my own thing, and I kind of created this lab at home where I studied like started like all the theory that I was seeing, in the university. I started to do the practice in my little setup in the studio, and then I connected with a teacher who she gave me this. It was sound drama. It was called the class. So she started connecting me. She saw that I was like really intrigued with sound for film, and she started connecting me with her students, because she was a teacher in another university where she taught film, drama, and acting and stuff like that. So I started working on some, like university projects, and that led to me like saying, this is what I want to do like all my life, and continue studying, sound and music and the involvement of both. And so one thing led to another, and I did one project, and then they recommended me. So I did another project, and word of mouth, people started calling. So I decided to open actually a commercial studio, and I built a studio in Bogota. And that's when I started like, working on, sound since then, 22 years ago. That's when the company started.
Mm. And what type of music did you play back then? What kind of instrument?
I've always been into like electronic and rock. That's like my two main elements. So at that time, I was mixing a lot of electronics, and because in the city where I lived in, it wasn't that big, so there wasn't a lot of musicians, and especially there wasn't a lot of musicians that could actually play what you wanted to play. Not because it was complex, but because we wanted to do another thing. So we started replacing musicians with, programming, and we started programming the bass, and then the drummer left the band, and we started, programming the drums. And then we started programming synths, because we didn't have synths, so we had to use whatever we had in, like the software world. But yeah, it was rock electronic. Back then I was doing a lot of trip hop, and I was doing like, mixing Deftones with Portishead and Massive Attack, and that was what I wanted to do back then. And throughout the years, I've always tried to, have musical projects. I've always thought that music always inspires me into working sound. I think they're not two independent things. I think they have to work together. And when you do music, you also sound design, and you also mix, and you also engineer. And if you're doing sound design for a film, you also, I believe, you have to think in terms of, pace and velocity and, emotion. And so for me, all, like those two worlds have always been together and have to work together in order for what you want to achieve, sonically. I mean, most
Yeah,
most of the
same for me.
yeah.
I'm.
You started in music also.
I just wanted to mention, yes, like many of us that work in audio post production or game audio, I started out as a rapper, and to me it was clear that I'm either doing the rap career or I start out as a sound engineer.
Uh-huh.
And then I prioritized the rapping. I had my own band as well and tried to manage everything there. And then the engineering was always coming short, and my internships were like, yeah, not really working out, or I was then working as a stagehand, but not as a front of house mixer. So it was always not the real thing that I wanted, and I couldn't invest enough energy to get there, because the music was always the number one priority for me. There was even a situation where it became very clear, because there was one band, they wanted me to have me as their front of house and monitor mixer for a whole tour. And then we did a test gig, let's say a test run. And I did a good job, but I also hopped on stage to perform with the lead artist. And then after the show, he said, yeah, I liked your mix. Everything was good, but you clearly want to be more on stage than you want to be behind a mixing desk. So I rather work with someone else. And that was for going on for a long time. But then at a certain point, I decided then to switch those priorities and looked into film sound, because that was back then the only thing I thought, oh, I haven't looked into this. And that then turned out to be really my thing. And I was lucky enough to have then also some education there, apprenticeship in Berlin, and I found really great mentors. And yeah, then I never stopped. That's also 15 years ago now.
Yeah, nice.
And did you, like, the whole musical upbringing, was this coming also from your family? Do you come from a musical family?
Actually, no. I mean, my dad was he was a music fanatic. He knew all the songs. He kind of, knew all the parts, and he was when he was driving, he was like playing the drums on the steering wheel, and he knew the bass part, everything, but he never learned to play anything. But I think he did cultivate in me like the love for music and always listening to music. And he was also always telling me stories like, this guy was the bass player, and he would tell me the story of the bass player, and this guy played drums in this band and this band and this band. So that kind of I think cultivated the curiosity in me. And always when we were traveling, my dad was like, you're the DJ, so you're gonna pick. It was cassettes in that day, so he was always like, you're gonna put the music. So I was, I'll hand him, one cassette, and after that, I'll kind of view all his cassettes and see which one will go next. So the trip would be like nice. But they were not musicians. I think music just came to me like naturally, probably in school. I started like, changing cassettes with friends and listening to various bands of the era, and I just, I fell in love, and then I decided to have my own band, and I breathe music. I mean, I love working in sound and films and stuff, but music, and I've talked to a lot of people who work in post-production, and I think from 9 out of 10 people that I talk to, they say they came from music. They wanted to have their band or their project or sing or play guitar or drums. And I mean, you don't fall like in this sound music world by accident or because someone told you to. Or I think this is a true passion that you have from day one, and that's what I feel today. The only thing that sucks is not, when I finish a movie, for example, you don't want to listen to anything. That's the only moment that I'm like, oh, I wish I would have wanted to listen to this record, but you're so tired and so fatigued with your ears that you have to have also those, calm spaces. So yeah, I think it's just a passion that I love.
Yeah, that's the main thing that is still true today. I think for people starting out, you need to have that passion and that fire and the willingness to really go full into this subject and dedicate your time to it and actually work in the craft and find the right people to learn with. Otherwise, if you just do the silo learning on YouTube and, okay, I can download Reaper for free, I can download some sound effects for free, now I'm a sound designer. I mean, this is not really working out. I mean, you have a team of 9 people that work with you. Can you give me a little bit of insight of how you founded your company? What was the incentive behind it? And what was the growth and the story of your studio? And up to date, it's like you have 9 people, you have Dolby Atmos, you have award-winning productions, and you work for all the big clients. How did this all evolve?
I think it was a process of a lot of work. Obviously, I started alone. There's been obviously like ups and downs, but as you said, as long as the passion and the fire is there, I've always tried to continue. Hopefully, and I'm very grateful and happy that I did continue, because I mean it's not easy, especially in an industry where 22 years ago here in Colombia the industry was still really small. There was a lot of things happening, but the industry was pretty small, and I was pretty small also. I was really young, so it was really hard to find projects and clients. But I'm happy that I tried to continue my path. I mean, not one day of my life have I thought of, dedicating myself to anything else besides working on what I love. So I think that's the thing that has like keep me like motivated. And as I said, yeah, I mean, I started alone, and it took a lot of years to actually have one other person, because basically there wasn't a lot of work that and the work that I received I could do alone. So it was really exhausting because it was long nights, and no weekends for having a trip or whatever. I was always working, and I was really tired, and but I had to continue because that's what I wanted to do all my life. So as things, I did a project, for example, and that project it won some awards and some stuff. So when that director wanted, to do another project, he will call me, or if there's a friend of his wanted to do a project, he will call me. And I always was also in the process of learning, not only like working for clients, but also in that investigation. I'm always trying to be like, what's new, what's new techniques. I listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books. So I always was using my time to learn and work, and make the process, the creative process, a thing that I really enjoyed. And then more projects came along the way, and more things also started happening in the industry. There's a lot of series and soap operas that are now produced here. And I think that when you deliver, work with passion, and the client feels that you're really involved in the project, and you're easy to talk to, you're easy to work with, all those things I think kind of sum and add to the equation, and put you in more possibilities. And always, almost, people think that when you have a studio or you work for clients, you're just in the studio working. But there's a lot of also work involved in knowing people, showing them your work, network, events, and things like that. Like what we're doing right now also helps, like connect. I mean, I've always seen my colleagues as connections, and there's some projects even that I do with other studios around the world or here in Colombia where we kind of collaborate, and that for me is like the ideal of growth. So all those elements, marketing yourself, and obviously doing your work with ethics, and on time, and in a responsible way. I think all those things kind of, evolve to more work and to making whatever project you have or idea or company grow.
Okay, to summarize again for my own understanding, it's having the passion, being consistent and persistent, and then also ethically delivering projects in time, stay true to what you said, and are easy to work with, easy to approach, and network properly. If you have all those things, then long term you can grow something.
Yeah, of course. And obviously add luck. Obviously, luck is like you have to talk to the right person in the right moment. Sometimes somebody's looking for sound, and you speak to them, and they're like, oh, I was just thinking about that, I need sound. And you just got there and you deliver your work, but it was also luck that the timing of the client and you, were together. So yeah, I mean, as I said, it's been a lot of work, and it's been ups and downs, but I'm thankful that right now we're in a very nice position. We've had a lot of work throughout the years. It's not easy to start, but it's not impossible. And when you love this that you do every day, it's less impossible. It would be worse to work in an office, 24/7 or 9 to 5 or whatever, that with a company that you don't like, work that you don't like. So
Mm.
and I kind of always try to reinvent myself also, so that I don't get like only stuck in one thing. So we do like different types of projects that also refresh, your work like routine, and that helps also. So yeah, that was a great resume. But I would just add like luck, and obviously, which is very important, is also having a great team, which I also am very thankful of. If it wasn't for the team that we've had throughout the years, most of the projects would maybe never been done. And when you have like a team aligned with what you think about sound and music, and how you uh, you know creatively work, I think that a team, I mean, you're not going to pull off a complete movie from dialogue editing to final mix alone. And if you are, you're going to take probably a year or so. So having a great team is also, more input and more ideas, and also more like areas and specialized areas. So you know that this person is really good at this, and this person is really good at this, and you bring the best of to bring a team and deliver whatever you have to deliver.
Before I ask you about your actual networking strategy, because that's something I'm sometimes also struggling with, especially when it comes to connecting to people that sit on a huge amount of projects and are not a post-production facility that just hires me to do service for them that they collected. My question is, before that, how do you hire your employees? How did your team evolve? What were the characteristics you were looking for? Did you hire people that came already with a lot of knowledge and a lot of best practice, mentor, and brought your own culture to the team?
Um, First of all, I'm very picky about just having nice people on the team. That for me is the most important. I always think that a person that wants to learn and is a nice person, like ethically a nice person, and it's easy to work with that person. That's like for me the first step. The second step is obviously there has to be a creative desire, which I consider people that want to do things differently, people that are really into learning, because you never stop learning. It's not like I'm going to teach them. I'm just going to guide them, towards what the project is, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of supervising the project. But in terms of the team, I try to search for people who I can actually take a coffee with, drink a beer, whatever. For me, like respect towards the other members of the team is very important. Having a nice time, having a nice chat. That's like the first thing. The second thing, obviously, is like this creative approach. Always trying to think in terms of sound, how things are going to be done. And the technical part for me is like the third, because we've done so many projects and we've been a team for so many years that at the end of the day, if there's something that you don't know, we'll probably figure it out or teach you or guide you. And if we don't know it, we'll actually, both of us, we're going to, go and search for how this should be done or how we can do it in our way. So those are like for me the three most important factors, because if a person is really technical and he records and he knows microphone placement and all the in axis, off axis, he knows all the microphone brands and all the whatever technical spec you can find in a sheet. But it's not easy to work with him, or he doesn't think out of the box, or those things for me just don't matter. I've even had people who come from a different background. For example, our Foley artist, he started studying acting, and he's also a musician, which he has always told me that those two things, like being a musician, actually playing guitar and singing, and acting lessons, he wanted to be an actor. Those things together helped him, develop his. I mean, he feels everything in terms of music, and as we were talking, like rhythm and pace and intention and dynamics and stuff like that. That at the end of the day, if you think about it, acting is that, because at the end of the day, as you are like your Foley work, you have to act. You're recreating what someone else did, and you have to give it a sonic intention. So that person, for example, came into the team. He had no idea in terms of technology. He was like starting like with some DAWs, and he did his music and stuff, but he was not into how to record it or edit it, or but that could just be taught. I think it's more difficult for a Foley artist, for example, to find that intention of the characters and what the situation is on screen and what type of movie it is and what do you need, what don't you need, and that for example, from our Foley artists came from acting. So yeah, that's one example. But yeah, we've had people on the team that have no idea, but you just feel that
Yeah,
fire that they want
that's
to learn.
experiential knowledge, right?
Yeah, exactly. And feeling like something that it's an element of feeling that some people have for certain things. And I mean, I love music, and I love, for example, I love uh, uh, bass, but I'm not good at it, but I feel it. So I could probably, sit on a bass and try to play it, and I'll probably play it. But there's some things that you feel that you're better for, and that's what I try to identify when someone is going into the team. That's what I don't want someone that knows everything, because learning is also,
Hmm.
part of the process and nice.
So I hear often times when people talk about hiring and building a company that you should hire people that are better than you in certain things. So did you also look for those kind of senior people who can bring in a kind of mentoring role to maybe you or to other people in the team?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every person that's on the team does what they do better than I do. The difference is that the only way that I can supervise and be like the kind of leader or partner in whatever we're going to do is I've done everything. I've also been a Foley artist. I've done dialogue edition. I've done music. I've recorded music. I've done sound effects, sound design. I've mixed. The only way that I can communicate what the client is telling me, and I can deliver it to the team, is understanding what actually that process consists of. So I've done all of those things, and I've done it for a long time, but I've tried to choose the person that I think does it better than me. So that's part of the process that I was kind of talking about. Not necessarily do I pick somebody that actually does it better than me. I pick someone that I know at the end of the day is going to do it better than me or is going to learn to do it better than me. So I love I love it to be a process, and I love to be part of that process, because when that person gets better, obviously I also get better. So it's like a one in one thing. We're always
Hmm.
talking, and we also have like a group where we constantly share links and, hey, did you check out this movie? Did you check out this Foley? So there's always a, creative and technological conversation around, hey, check out this new plugin, or check out this, or I didn't like this film, but I really like the sound effects. Check it out. So we're always like, giving input and knowledge and, sharing all that we should. So it's not like the Foley artist knows nothing about sound effects. We try to be actually a team because we're working on one thing. So all of us are involved in all of the others areas, and we're always learning from the other person to also give input, because, for example, whatever the Foley artist says is not like the last word. Maybe we can have some input on one, how he's going to approach Foley or whatever. So we're always, talking. That's why for me it's very important to have a team that can easily talk and be open to new things or ideas or concepts.
I really like this idea that you bring in people that you have a sense for their actual potential and their curiosity. How do you measure that? Is there a application test, or do you sit down with someone and let them do some work, or is it different with each person individually? Can you give me a bit of insight there?
I do think that I have a sense. Actually, my wife tells me about it, and not. I have a sense for people. I am very. I try to be very analytical in terms of how people react to whatever, I say, or whatever the project says, or whatever the client says. And I do think that I have a sense, but usually people that I feel comfortable with have that fire that we were talking about. Um, I just feel that they really want to get into this, because I kind of put myself, when I was starting, when I was like, I'll do this for free. It doesn't matter. Just let me go into the studio and let me just, I'll bring the cables and I'll do this and I'll do that, because I really wanted to be part of this and I really wanted to learn. So when I feel that sense, you can tell when someone just wants the job to get, to be part of the project, get paid, etc. And you feel when someone really wants to, be part of this, and he feels pride of, appearing on credits, and he feels pride of delivering, and he feels pride of, look at this sound that I constructed, and all the team is like, wow, that's incredible. You feel it. I mean, it's not like delivering footsteps, cloth, and props, and it's more about, actually, you feel when a person does something and it builds him and it turns him into a more powerful person and a more happy person. And I just feel that. Obviously, it's not like an immediate thing, because it's not like an interview and that's it. We do have some tests with the people that are going to work with us. We have some tests, and we have to see them personally. Before seeing them personally, we have like a Zoom meeting or whatever, and then we just talk. And it's not like it's not like immediate processes, but there's a lot of people that work with us that have been working with us for some time now. And if they're not with us, it's because, different circumstances. But some people have gone to, there's actually, for example, there's a guy who worked with us, Ernesto. He's not working with, he's doing FIFA. What is the company that does the FIFA game? He just won, and he just
EA?
EA, exactly. He's working with EA. And another friend of ours, he actually went to Germany. He also worked with us on series and stuff for many years. So that the team is so nice that when somebody goes out, they actually continue working on what they love, and they get really nice jobs, and they also continue to give input, and we talk constantly about, what's happening with life. But yeah, I do feel a sense, and not only for work, with my friends also, I have a sense to who I can trust and who I can't trust, or who I don't want to trust, who I get along with. But yeah, I do think it's as I said, is a sense. There's people that
Mm.
come to the interview and they know, as I said, everything about the tech part, like the actual Pro Tools and, microphones and stuff, but you can feel that they're not into, I mean, we're always working, and that's why, for example, I don't work per hour, because I know that when I work per hour, I'm going to do more hours anyway, because I want it just to be good, and I want to deliver something that I'm proud of. And you can kind of tell when people just, work 9 to 5, or they want to really be into, um, creative process that you don't even know if it's going to come from 9 to 5. It could be in, 1 in the morning.
100%. Yeah. Quick one. Maybe you think you have subscribed to this channel already, but you haven't. So please check and make sure that you have subscribed, because it actually helps us to grow, maintain, and make this channel better. It would be a great free help that you could provide us. So thank you for doing so. And let's get back to the episode. I feel so much of myself, my own story in what you just said about the people you like to work with, and this passion and the dedication, and that you actually want a great result. I did this for many years in a company where I was employed after my apprenticeship, and it was mainly working on TV movies, and barely a director or a producer recognized the work. And there was even one producer. I did so much stuff with this person over years, and he never remembered my name. When we met again at the final mix, I was sitting as a sound effects editor next to the re-recording mixer, and he always mentioned, yeah, that's, he always introduced himself again and again and again and again. And then, but this never encouraged me, because I didn't do it for them. I just love to work on those projects. And then over the years, I got better and better. And then there was one project, there was like a tricky scene, which didn't really work from the editing part and how they actually, but I kind of rescued the scene with a sound design. Pretty like normal stuff, you would say, but it was a bit tricky, and it kind of really made the thing work, It was not like rocket science or something, but just how I layered stuff and how I really made it work. And then everyone was kind of, wow, this is amazing. And then everyone was looking to me, oh, thank you. And from that day on, this guy remembered me, And it took many, many years till I got to that level when I entered the final mix with a new director, and we played like a couple of minutes. Then we hit stop, and then the guy says, first of all, thank you very much. I feel that a lot of love has been put into my project. And, that takes years. It took me years of practice, of getting input from other people, that I showed my work before the mix, and then they told me, look, you're doing everything wrong. Please do your ambiences like that, and then I can work with them. And all these kind of steps, and then never giving up, always like, okay, I'm coming I'm coming over the weekend and fixing this before the final mix starts. And then, learning all the things. And then eventually I got into this Foley thing, and with the knowledge I had from the sound effects editing and the mixing, I kind of knew what I was looking for, but then to translate that into the practice and how to get the results into the DAW that I was already having in my head, fortunately, also then was a huge grind, and playing around with surfaces and decoupling stuff from the room, and using mic techniques that didn't work because the room was too small, and then, inventing stuff until it finally, you're getting somewhere, And then after a while, I hear like also directors give feedback that they like the Foley, and that also never happens in TV movies usually, but that also took me a couple of years. And yeah, just to comment on what you said, it's a long-term game you have to play if you really want to elevate to a certain level of that people actually appreciate what you do on a higher level.
Yeah, and what you said is really true. Like, and it's like the fire that we've talked about the whole conversation, because when things like that happen to you, like, you know that you put effort into it and love and hours, extra hours of work and passion and moving microphones. I mean, not a lot of people, like my friends, know what I do, and I've tried to explain to them what I do, and now they understand. But for them, the first time that I talked to them about it, they were like, "What? Is all that done for a movie?" There's a lot of people who still think that it's just, sound comes from, the location sound. They don't imagine that all the cars are put there and the airplanes and the Foley and the footsteps and stuff. So when you introduce them to that world, it's like, man, you must love your work a lot to just have to do all that for just one footstep or one, cup or one, whatever. At the end of the day, you think like, yeah, I do love my work, and I love that building and that architecture that you have to build in terms of, because it's not just one sound, it's one sound that has to work with another sound and with another sound and with the story, obviously.
Mm.
So you kind of, it's like building, and when you finish the building, what happened to you happens to me also even now, like when I deliver a movie and I go and see it for a festival or something, I'm yeah, like, yeah, man. And you're always
Yeah,
thinking like,
100%.
yeah, I could have fixed this or whatever. You're always thinking how it could be better, but at the end of the day, you're so happy. It's like something is born, and a movie is born, and now it's in the world and people are going to see it. So that fire for me is the day that I don't feel like very proud of what I tried to achieve in a work or with a client or with a project. I'm just gonna get out of the business, because that's what motivates me to work. That satisfaction of thinking about that you absolutely gave the best out of you and your team to deliver something, and you were very picky, and you were that sense of love, and is very, very important to me, and it's what keeps me
Mm.
alive, basically.
Yeah, I feel 100% the same. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming when you have all this workload, and especially in Foley, I always felt when I was a sound effects editor that the Foley team was kind of the hardest working, because we did ping pong and had a coffee and did go out for lunch and did this and did that and then got back to the ambiences or whatever. And the Foley team, they kind of locked in at 9 a.m. We only came at 10. And then we saw them for 30 minutes lunchtime. And then they're like locked in again until like 6, 7 p.m. And that's it every day.
Yeah.
And I always felt back then, boy, this must be really tough, And now I'm doing this myself for years, and yeah, sometimes I feel like really like, oh, I need a break, when I have a lot of projects in a row. This is kind of, but then on the other hand, this week I realized that even if you're on this grind, every project is kind of different, because in Foley we have this high turnover, right?
Yeah.
So I'm working on an episode for one day, and then next day I'm working on something else. When you work as a sound designer, you have projects over a longer period, let's say a month or 2 months, or at least 2 weeks if you're doing a dialogue edit or what. So I have like I'm circling between 3 days for a TV movie or 6 days for a cinema, like the maximum amount, maybe 10, 15 days for one project, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting that even though it's always kind of the same thing, yeah, footsteps, cloth, props, whatever, it's always something else, like the context matters. What is the story? What is the quality level? What is the pace? And then everything is kind of new again.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this gun in my hand for something, for a war movie, and then I do a documentary, and it's a complete different thing. And it's so interesting that this doesn't get boring in a way. And I feel very blessed that I can do the Foley thing now, because to me personally, it's a good thing that I don't have to sit in front of a computer the whole day, which I also enjoy, but I would fall asleep like a lot quicker
Yeah.
than what I do when I do the Foley. That's a personal thing for me, but just wanted to mention that, to get to my maybe one of my last questions, because I'm really curious here. How do you manage your networking in with clients and potential clients? Do you get to people who are directly involved in production or on a studio level, or do you work with sound supervisors or other, let's say, post-production companies that hand out their overhead to you?
It's a little of all of the ones you mentioned. I'm always on the search of new and interesting projects, and I kind of find my way towards how to be part of it. When sometimes like a project is announced, and I love it. Like, this is absolutely fantastic, and I try to get involved in many ways. But as you said, we work. I mean, since we've been around as you for so many years, I think it has also been like word of mouth. Because, for example, I meet a producer which I do a project with, and then 2 years later that producer moves to another company or creates another company or has another project. And if I did a good job, he calls me and he quotes me and whatever. And it kind of works that way. Or that producer could just recommend, our work to another person, and that then we do a project with that person, and that person recommends us with another. I think that, your work kind of talks on its own. And if you do something nice for a client, and communication was easy, you delivered on time. If he wanted to change something in the middle of the process, you changed it without just, hesitating or whatever. If you're easy to work with, I think that leads to, I mean, there's obviously like producers who receive a project and can't work with you by any reason, but usually they're grateful, and they, because as I pick team members, I also believe that I do pick clients. Um, I am very picky about clients also. There are, definitely for me, there are like red flags of clients that I just don't want to work with, because either I worked with them in the past and it didn't work out in a certain way, or I just know that it's gonna, be something that could be bad for me. So I try to work on projects that are easy to work with. But yeah, I do network with production companies, people who are, directors. As I started out so early, those early directors I worked with, sometimes even for free, they have certain degree of gratitude towards you, and it's like, hey, you helped me with my first film, so when I do a film with a decent budget, I'm for sure I'm going to call you. And that kind of, um, you know relationship and confidence really leads to more work. I also have no problem with working with other studios. Also, there's sometimes we do projects that are so big, or clients, or other studios that do projects so big that you have to kind of build a very solid team, because, as I said, Colombian industry is not that big in terms of film and TV. So there are certain projects, for example, if there's a movie coming from the United States and you know that you're going to have to deliver in 3 or 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and it's a lot of work because there's a lot of action and cars and, shooting and sound design, sci-fi. You have to build a very solid team that knows how to work fast and knows what has to be done. So we constantly get called by other studios also when that happens. They receive a project, or sometimes we receive a project and it's big, and maybe we have a lot of work at the moment, so we have to, call another studio to help us out. That happens really often. So I'm always trying to build teams with other people that work in sound here, because that's the only way to achieve bigger projects and bigger stuff. Sometimes for you trying to just stay you, it's something that's not, it's not very positive. So we also work with other studios. And if we do a series, for example, and we did the series and it was nice and they liked it, they're going to probably call us for second season or third season or whatever. So yeah, my network basically is that, like being very aware of what's happening, doing my job as best as I can, because I know that's gonna be the best market plan that you could have, like delivering actual, uh, good work and being easy to work with and communicate clearly. For me, those things are probably, I mean, if those things work, it's very improbable that they're not going to call you back for another project. So most of our clients are
Yeah.
clients that have been there for years, like for a lot of projects and a lot of stuff. And when new projects come along, it's because I try to find them, or because they just, come to us because
So
someone
how do you
recommended.
try to find them? I understood that you are curious and aware of what's going on. What is the process then if you want something that you don't have like the connections right away, or the pedigree or the reputation, or that something is completely new? How do you approach this?
As I said, I'm always aware of what is being delivered on the internet. So I'm subscribed to, I don't know how many, web pages where, short of the week and movie of the month and I don't know what. And I'm always like looking at the films and the short films and stuff. And when I see something like, oh man, this director has incredible vision, the cinematography is great and stuff. I wish I could work on a project with this guy. And I start trying to contact. Initially, I just say, hey, we are Amniotica Studio. We've been around for X years. We do this, and it would be nice if whatever you need, I'll be there. So I do that a lot, like a lot of emails and a lot of contacting directly, like the directors, producers, production companies. I'm always also contacting studios, actually, because studios, as we are full sometimes and we need help, also some studios need help. So maybe they have a lot of work and they don't want to say no to this movie or this short film or this spot for TV or whatever. And when they have like your information, and maybe if they checked out the website or whatever, they're gonna have, they're gonna reference you and maybe say, hey, why don't we call these guys, or why don't we call Bastion, or why don't we call whatever
Mm.
studio contacted them. But
So
I'm
you mean
always, yeah.
sorry, you mean other post-production studios or film studios?
Yeah, both. I'm always,
Okay.
like writing, because, for example, there's some studios that, I mean, one of the things why I got out of actually recording just music was because the industry is it's so hard, and you know, the amount of gear and the money that you have to spend on actually building a nice music recording studio, that's a lot of money. And it's not a lot of just money on gear, it's also space, acoustics, building. So why I got out from that was because I think the industry and post production moves a bit. There's like more work, right? You can do podcasts, you can do sound editing, you can do dialogue editing. You can do a lot of things. So there's a lot of studios that don't have that much work in terms of music, and they receive a project which they don't want to say no. Like, hey, can you do a short film? Yeah, we can do a short film, and they hire people. I mean, they have the space and they have probably the mixing board and the monitoring system and everything, but they don't do that every day. So it's not going to be easy for them to deliver something good quality, and they call you. So I always network with people that I know that are in the animation world, in the movie world, in the producing world, in the film investment world. I'm always on the search for people like that, and I invite them, for a coffee, or sometimes I go to LA, because I kind of move between LA in Bogota. I try to go at least two times a year, and I go and show people stuff, and visit old clients, visit old friends, and when you kind of remind them that hey, I'm here, whatever you need, just call me. They have you. It's like a refresh of your information and what you do and your face and things, and when they have to recommend you with another person, they'll kind of remember you and your work. And I think it's like that. I try to build my network, my web around all that I can, and sometimes even no work is involved, but I just the input of creative people for me is very important. Like artists in general, painters and movie makers, directors, editors, that I know that they're not going to give me like work because they don't actually are the person who takes that decision. But all that input for me is really important. And when you talk to people, not in terms of just work, they kind of remind you more. So for me, just sharing those. For example, I have a lot of friends who work in animation, and just it's marvelous to just hear them, from their side of animation, how as we talk about sound, they also talk about movement and keyframes and color and uh, pace and velocity. We talk in the same terms, but obviously in different arts. So it's always giving me information. So when you approach somebody without the intention of asking them for work and just having a chat about what they do and how they approach their work, I think that works more than actually just calling and saying, "Hey, I'm here. Whatever you need in terms of sound, I'm here." So that relationship builds. I love to talk
Mm.
about art, sound, and whatever. So it's just a network.
Makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all this with me, Alejandro. I really appreciate it.
No,
Personally,
thank
I
you.
learned I learned a ton. I admire you for the team that you've built and the entrepreneurial thing that stands behind that. Um, Happy to stay in touch with you further. For me, that was just an introduction call that we did publicly.
For sure.
So
But
thank you
I
very
would
much
like
for
to
taking the
know.
time.
I would also like to know about your craft, and what's your approach towards Foley, and I mean, because you talk about with other Foley artists, you talk about your craft and how you approach things, but always listening to the approach of another person is really important. How do you approach a project when it? Do you sit and see it and see like, hey, I'm going to approach this in a certain way. I need this. What's your process? I would also like to know you.
So my process, in a nutshell, is I'm coming from the sound effects mixing side, engineering side, and started Foley as the last thing of all these things. So the dialogue editing, sound effects editing, sound design. I mixed a couple of movies, and then I started and I did Foley editing like so much, but I never was on the other side and performed the Foley. So when I'm approaching something, depending on the time frame and the budget, I'm either watching the whole thing back to back and then get into the mood maybe a couple of days before, and then I start. And oftentimes there's not that amount of time or budget available. And then I just do the cloth pass, try to find the right tone there already with the dialogue, and then go through the whole thing so that I get an idea of what's going on. And then I continue with the footsteps. And then it's the same process. First couple of scenes, I need this kind of time to find the right sound. And then I just go. And then props, yeah, it's then the same. And I kind of, now I'm recording myself again. Last year, I trained someone full time, a friend of mine. So this was a bit of a different process. But now I have to double check my work even more because it's only 2 eyes and not 4. So with each like iteration circle, I then sometimes watch then the scenes back with dialogue, without dialogue, and then make sure that everything I need is there. And yeah, with the experience that I have, then I don't need like a final quality control. Most of the time there is not the budget and time for that I can go after that, like through the whole thing again and make like another iteration and okay, I could improve here, or I can, you know, sometimes maybe I get a call, oh, you forgot that person that is walking on the grid above the main characters. Oh yeah, okay, I didn't see that. Then I record that and deliver it afterwards, you know?
Okay.
That's my process.
And are you happy with the process of you being like alone? Because we've actually been doing that also for some time now. And our Foley artist has shared that obviously sometimes you do feel that you need like a Foley mixer or Foley editor like right next to you. But he also explains that I mean, it's more time, obviously, but he also feels he has like more creative liberty, as I understand, because he kind of feels that he can do one thing 7 times if he needs to, and he doesn't have to bug anybody or ask anybody or just ask the person, "Are you ready?" or cue the person or whatever. And he feels he's more creative. How do you feel about that?
To be honest, I have to end the call because I have a follow-up meeting with a Foley artist from Italy.
No problem.
So we have to continue that in another discussion if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Because I
for
don't want
sure.
this guy to wait. Yeah.
No, Bastian, thank you so much for inviting me. As I said at the beginning I'm always seeing your Instagram stories and your YouTube channel, and I thank you. You're an educator, and I thank you for that. You're very you're very nice on sharing your all the things that you've learned throughout the years, and congratulations on that from me and from the team, because I told them I was going to be with you and they were like, hey, so nice. So thank you very much for that. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And let's hope that we can meet personally.
Yeah, 100%. I would love that. And I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for that feedback. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's continue this offline and also online. Looking forward to it.
For sure. We're going to collaborate one day, for sure.
God willing. I would love that. Thank you very much for watching up until the end. It means a lot. It means you are dedicated towards your career in audio. If you want to reach out to me directly, just reach out via DM on Instagram or LinkedIn, and do the same with Alejandro. We're looking forward to hearing from you and collaborating in the future. Peace, the Foley teacher.